Hey guys, this is the Professor, and it's a cold, dark, cloudy day here, a few days before Christmas. In fact, today is the winter solstice. So what we're going to do today is to cook up some potato bacon chowder today, which is the continuing third part of our series on the bushcrafter's favorite meat, and that of course is bacon. So what we're going to do today is to create two versions of this meal. One is for a base camp or a cabin version, which we're going to do in the Dutch oven, and the other one is going to be in a billy can, which is going to simulate a hike out through the woods where we don't have as much equipment. So first of all here, the recipe, which by the way came from the Bethel Baptist Church Volume 3 cookbook from Colchester, Illinois, tells us that we should have 8 slices of bacon. And I don't have quite that much here, so what we do in that case is we simply get by with what we've got. So first thing we'll do here is to take our bacon and we'll cut that up into about 1-inch pieces. Now for the base camp or the cabin version of the meal, we're going to use a 4-quart Dutch and coals underneath. Of course, as I've told many times before, the secret to campfire cooking is really only put things that you want to boil in the flames. We're going to use coals here on the hearth in order to fry up our bacon. And so what we'll do is get a good shovel full of those and get that underneath the Dutch and get that heating up a little bit. And we'll get that bacon in there and get that started to frying up. Now the main recipe calls for 2 cups of diced potatoes. Now what we have here are basically 3 medium-sized potatoes, and what I'm going to do is to use 2 of those in the main batch today, and we'll save 1 small potato's worth for our billy can version. Once again, the measurement on this isn't too critical. Once again, you want some potato in there. If you have 1 medium potato, makes about a cup diced. But once again, this isn't rocket science, so if you miss that a little bit, it's no big deal. What I need to do now is to continue to watch that bacon, but I need to get the peelings off of these potatoes. So we'll get started on that and be back with you here in just a minute. Okay, well, the bacon's starting to fry up a little bit, starting to smell real good, and the next thing we need to do is get these potatoes diced up. Now the secret to boiling these potatoes up pretty quickly is to get them diced really small. Really about, I would say, half the size of your Monopoly dice at home. And the smaller you dice those up, the quicker they're going to boil out, which is what we want out here at the cabin today. Once again, we're going to divide these out. We're going to use about 2/3 of our potatoes in the main mixture today, and we're going to use about the equivalent of 1 small potato in our billy can version of this meal. So let's go ahead and get those diced out very small. Now furthermore, the recipe calls for 1 cup of chopped onion. What I've got here is part of an onion that I had left over from the last recipe, and so we're just going to put that in. Not going to be quite the full amount, but once again, just some of the flavor is going to do the job for us in the main version of the recipe today. And for the billy can recipe, which I'll show you in a second here, I've got some minced onion and also some onion powder. So out on the trail, might not be as convenient to chop up your onion. If you had some, bring it along, but we can substitute some dried, some onion powder to get the same effect, get the flavor of that out in the woods. Today what we're going to do here with our onion is go ahead and saute that in with the bacon a little bit. Make sure that bacon's fried up some grease now, and we'll go ahead and saute that onion out in the base camp version. Okay, we notice the belly can version of the meal. I put the one medium potato diced small into the belly can with just enough water to cover. Now, since we're boiling this, we are going to want this to be in the hottest part of the flames. So if you're out at camp, you can suspend this on your crane, your pot hook. Here in the cabin, I'm going to set it on my high tripod very near the fire. Now the potatoes in the belly can have boiled up a little bit, and what I'm going to do here is go ahead and put in some of the bacon. Now, in the real situation, the scenario would be that you have bacon and eggs for breakfast, you got a couple pieces left over, and then you save a couple of these pieces of bacon back, put them in a plastic bag and throw them in your pack. Take those with you for lunch. But for now, what we'll do is we'll just throw in the equivalent of a couple pieces of bacon in there. And of course there's a few onions that rode along with it, but what we're going to do now are add some of our other ingredients. Now for our belly can version, instead of the actual onions which we're going to have here in the base camp, we're just going to substitute some onion powder or some minced onion. And you could just kind of go by taste here. Probably a teaspoon would be about right. So just put in some, and then you can get that back on the fire. Now let's get that back on the fire. Now in the base camp version, we're going to go ahead and get the potatoes in there now. Just like in the belly can version, those need to boil up a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and add boiling water to those. About a cup is what the recipe calls for. And notice now the tremendous importance of having exact measurement for all of your recipes. Exactly 1 cup of water. Now for the base camp version, we're going to add next of all a can of cream of chicken soup. And of course this will be enough for 2 to 3 people. But out at the camp version or the hiking version, the weight of cans is a nuisance. You have to pack the cans out, it makes too much. So what we'll have here is a 1 package of cup of soup. It comes in a lot of different flavors, but it comes in these convenient little 1-serving packages. And so by adding our bacon, adding our potatoes, and a few other flavorings, it'll kind of stretch this 1 cup of soup, which typically only makes 6 ounces. Now in the base camp version, we're going to have some fresh milk and some sour cream. But in the belly can version, we're going to make some substitutions. First of all here, we have just some coffee made. We'll put that in to kind of simulate the creaminess of the sour cream. And we'll just add 1/4 of a cup of dry milk powder. Give that a stir and see how our water content is. Sometimes that water tends to kind of boil away, so we're going to want to add some more water to bring our volume up to the desired amount. Once again, we've got hot water here from the tea kettle, which we'll go ahead and add to that. Once again, the volume can kind of be adjusted for the situation. Also, we're going to want to add some pepper, maybe some salt, but the salt content of the soup is pretty high. There's already salt in the bacon, so maybe there's enough salt in there. Well, our base camp version of this meal is cooking up fast now. The potatoes are boiling away rapidly here. Got those over hot coals and plenty of side heat. So we're going to go ahead and bake those up until the potatoes are soft. And we'll be back here in just a minute for the finishing touch. Well, here's the finished product on the billy can meal. Notice here that our potatoes are all cooked up nice and soft. We've got a kind of a creamy base here, which is powdered milk and a little bit of coffee creamer to simulate the sour cream that we're going to have in the other version. And of course we got some bacon, and just like the others, we got some onion flavor, some of which comes from onions, but mostly onion powder and a few minced onions. So let's give that a taste and see what we got. Pretty good, pretty good. We might need a little bit more pepper, but other than that, it's good enough to eat. Now let's move on to the base camp version of the meal and finish it up. Now for the base camp version, we're going to add our 1 can of cream of chicken condensed soup and a little bit more water. While the recipe calls for 1 cup of water, you have to continually watch your liquid content, because here by the fire the intense heat sometimes boils away that liquid. So you got to pay attention to the amount of liquid and replenish that as needed. We're going to let that cook up a little bit, and we'll add the last 2 ingredients, which are our milk and sour cream. Now we don't want the sour cream and the milk to boil, so we'll go ahead and get this soup heated up pretty much. Get that reconstituted and very hot. But when we add the milk and the sour cream, then we'll just heat that up to serving temperature. We don't want to boil those last 2 ingredients. Okay guys, now we can see here that our soup mixture here with the potatoes, the bacon, the onions, is all boiling up nicely here beside the fire. And now we're going to go ahead and add our last 2 ingredients. First of all, the recipe calls for 1 3/4 cups of milk. And notice here that I will use the very precise method of measuring every ingredient that goes into our potato soup today. Another thing the recipe calls for here is 1 cup of sour cream. Once again, notice the importance of precise measurement for this recipe to turn out. What we'll do is we'll stir that up, and we will be a little careful to not let this come to a boil now. We just want to heat that through to serving temperature, and our soup, our potato bacon chowder using the bushcrafter's favorite meat, bacon, will be done. Okay, now for the finishing touches. I'm just going to grind in a little fresh pepper here in our bacon potato chowder. Thanks for joining me out at the cabin today, and I hope you're enjoying the series of the bushcrafter's favorite meat, which is bacon. This is Professor, and I'll see you soon.